Conservatives seem to hate the healthcare mandate, but what about a gun mandate? Let's take a look.
One U.S. town is taking the gun control debate to a whole new level. The town of Nelson, Georgia is home to 913 people. Now every one of its residents is required to own a gun and ammunition in their homes. The City Council of 5 voted unanimously in favor of the measure yesterday. Seems like a bold move in the wake of the recent push to control firearms in the United States. Turns out most people there already have a gun in their home, and crime there is so low that the Georgia town only has 1 police officer. The bill will likely not be enforced as it is more symbolic in nature than anything else.
Now, this type of symbolic legislation was also proposed and passed in Nucla, Colorado. So now we have another city that is trying to make a point about guns and how everyone should have one. It's kind of incredible, Dave. I mean, why is it that Americans don't care so much about protecting the Fourth Amendment, but they care a lot when it comes to the Second Amendment?
This is so crazy at so many levels. First off, isn't it the NRA that always says the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun? Well, in that piece we just saw, they just said they have virtually no crime and they only have 1 cop. So this basically seems like the safest town in America, so then why does everyone need the guns? If they said, well, zombies are taking over, I watch Walking Dead, then yes, everyone needs a gun. But to have the logic is completely antithetical. To say there's no crime, you should all have a gun, it just doesn't make sense. But it shows you that the debate has devolved to the point where it's like, you're either for this or against it. It's a very George Bush way of thinking. So you're either for it or against it, so you better stock up on guns, even if there's no reason to do so.
I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, doesn't this go against the personal liberty that they're always preaching about? Because this is anti-liberty. This is forcing you to do something that you may not really want to do. Now, they are saying that they're not going to enforce it. I get it. You guys are going to make that point. I totally understand that. But Peter, doesn't this kind of go against what they're really for? Or what they claim they're for?
It certainly goes against the basic concept of liberty and as being able to do as you please, and certainly other constitutional guarantees. If you look at the freedom of speech, that has always been interpreted to include the freedom not to speak, so government can't compel you to speak, or freedom of religion, that always has been interpreted to include atheism and to protect the right not to practice a religion. So it's interesting that advocates of the Second Amendment would, in at least these particular advocates, would choose to compel people to own a gun as well. I can't imagine that would actually be constitutional unless they have so many exemptions for people who have religious objections to violence as to make it essentially toothless.
Now, the NRA would make the argument that people on the terrorist watch list should still be protected under the Second Amendment. They should still have the ability to have a gun. I mean, it's so. Desi, is it really about safety, or is there something else at play here?
Well, as far as, these 2 little towns, I don't know what their problem is, so I'm assuming that it's a strictly ideological point that they're trying to make here. Right. Because, they can no more, I would think, no more force you to own a gun than they can take your gun away from you without cause. So, as somebody who, I support the Second Amendment because I support all of the amendments, I think they're all great. And they shouldn't, one doesn't cancel out another. And I do find that there's a lack of, let's say, logic that comes with some of the more fringe elements of the Second Amendment supporters. I don't know why this particular town decided that they had to have this in place. Maybe they want to not have to pay for a police officer's salary and insurance and pension anymore. So
the one guy.
The one guy. They only got the one guy. They have no crime, but maybe they don't feel like paying that money anymore. Maybe there is some effort from the gun industry to say, hey, why don't you guys do this too, and maybe we can make even more profits from people getting scared that we're going to take away their guns. It seems to me completely illogical.
Yeah, and it's really unfair because you have, so-called gun nuts that are very extreme in their views, and then you have people who are very, they're nuanced, and you realize, they realize that there is some logic and there are reasonable gun control proposals, like background checks, just making sure that guns don't end up in the wrong hands. So I'm not in favor of banning guns, but I definitely think gun control makes some sense. It would be ridiculous to make sure that every single person in America gets their hands on a gun.
Yeah, I mean, the inconsistencies are incredible because I'm going to guess that this is a conservative town where probably most of the people are against Obamacare because they don't want the government forcing you to have health insurance, and yet they're forcing you to have a gun.
Exactly.
So I think this really goes to just basic distrust of government, which I think some of that is kind of healthy, but clearly I don't think it's about the specifics of the paying the police officers.
I don't know. I was just sort of like,
right,
well,
but
why would you do this? Because it seems antithetical to the other stuff that you say that you're also against.
Right. So it's probably not about like the little specific things, and more just this general distrust of government. And we got to stock up on the guns now, because if you go on Drudge Report or Alex Jones's website every day, the government's coming for your guns.
Right. I mean, I will say that if I had a pistol or something, I would feel a lot safer against like these weaponized drones. I would definitely fight back against the government.
Sky?
Oh, definitely.